7 different presidents signed this from both political parties, including Trump during his first term. But guess what? We're not doing things the same way anymore there, Judge. Within the first month of his second term, President Trump unilaterally decided that the U.S. Institutes of Peace is unnecessary. This is a gross usurpation of power and a way of conducting government affairs that unnecessarily traumatized, oh no, an Obama judge going wild again. We've talked about her many times. Judge Beryl Howell, one of the most monstrous judges back during the January 6th saga, out of the District of Columbia. You know what she looks like. We've talked about her a lot. She was an Obama appointee chief judge, oversaw grand juries against Trump, multiple situations, ordered Trump's attorneys like Evan Corcoran to testify against Trump, saying, you violated the crime fraud exception, and so your attorney-client privilege is breached. Tell me everything. She's terrible. Now, she has come back down and reinstituted, essentially, the U.S. Institute of Peace. Remember, Trump deleted it, essentially, along with USAID and a bunch of other entities, and now she says it all is coming back. So she says, you know, the U.S. Institute of Peace was created by Congress 40 years ago, and Ronald Reagan signed it. And by design, U.S. Institutes of Peace was established by 2 political branches to advance a safer, more peaceful world with specific tasks of conducting research for Democrats, providing training on peacemaking techniques, I guess for trans people in the sub-Sahara, and promoting peaceful conflict resolution abroad. All nonsense without formally involving the U.S. government in foreign disputes. So what's pretty interesting about this is she admits here that's kind of a big task. So how can Congress just create a new agency that the president doesn't control? How does that happen? Since they're all doing a bunch of things that are like outside of the U.S. government. Is she describing like the CIA without formally involving the U.S. government in foreign disputes? Well, maybe we want formal involvement so we don't have a bunch of hack organizations just going around engaging in American diplomacy without any accountability to us. To ensure the independence of the Institute, which is a scam, unless the Constitution says we're going to create a 4th branch for this, and it didn't. Congress stated this intent explicitly in the statute, which says that they are an independent nonprofit corporation, right? The judge says, the law says that the Congress made it independent. So they're independent. Certain prerequisites for the exercise of presidential power to remove their board members. Then Congress has endorsed their important work by continuing to fund the Institute through appropriations bills. 7 different presidents signed this from both political parties, including Trump during his first term. But guess what? We're not doing things the same way anymore there, Judge. In a drastic and abrupt change of course, within the first month of his second term, President Trump unilaterally decided that the U.S. Institutes of Peace is unnecessary. That's right. He issued Executive Order 14217. And then they rushed through the actions, says Judge. They removed board members. They reached the goal of reducing their operations and personnel to a bare minimum, only to perform its mandatory statutory tasks. And they ignored the broader goals set out for this organization to fulfill, the broader purposes, right? Like they're not going to be able to go out there and what are they going to do? Provide training on peacemaking techniques. I don't know who's doing the training or what peacemaking techniques these are. Is this like when you're like in kindergarten and they're like, okay, put your hands in your pockets. Don't punch people in the face, little Robbie. Put your hands in your pockets. Or like sit on your hands. Remember that technique? What techniques are they talking about over there? Promoting peaceful conflict resolution abroad? The hell is that? No one knows. That's the point. It means nothing. So it's just a grift. Now, Trump canceled it and she's freaked. These unilateral actions were taken without asking Congress to cease or to reprogram these appropriations. Okay, well, Congress doesn't run it. Or by recommending that Congress enact a new law. Oh no. Or dissolve or reduce the Institute. Like they don't like the method, the methodology, the mechanism by which their saving entities are evaporated in front of their very eyes. You didn't even ask to transfer it, despite the constitutional duties that, oh, don't you quote the Constitution to us? Take care and faithfully execute the laws? Don't you talk to us about that. He is taking care. That's what the dissolution of this agency was for. He is faithfully executing the laws, which is the Constitution. There are no independent agencies created by Congress that aren't touchable by the executive branch. Get out of here. Instead, the current administration decided to effectuate this executive order through blunt force. Backed up by law enforcement officers from 3 separate local and federal agencies. They removed the Institute's leadership. You remember this, how fun this was? Including their board members and its president in contravention of the law. They had Doge come in there and take over their headquarters in March. With the newly installed president at the Peace Place, the administration then handed off the property for no consideration, terminated half its staff and activities around the world. You're canceled. Get out. Say, and they're freaked. Their lawyers say they only had 4 employees left at the headquarters. Just amazing. Only 4 people left. It's perfect. Only a handful overseas, and that 0 programmatic activities are happening there anymore. And their lawyers represent only 5 employees are left, and the Institute is currently in the operational posture of being reduced to its statutory minimum. Like, we got every single person we needed there, not one more. It's just amazing. The question before this court, writes this judge, who's just so mad about this, is whether these unilateral actions by Trump and his administration are legal under the Constitution. By the way, the USIP, right? If you create an independent agency, that's unconstitutional. It's got to reside somewhere. We got 3 branches of government, so it's got to fit somewhere, right? And the president executes the law. So when Congress and the executive branch and all of these morons play patty cake with each other over the last 7 presidents or however many decades to allow these independent agencies to exist, it's a grift, and it is a diffusion of their power. And that's not how our country is supposed to operate, because we want accountability for the people who we have in charge. And if you create independent agencies with all these rules about what they can do and how they're removed and all those things, that divests us of accountability over them because they're independent. We don't want that. We want to know who's responsible for this, not some independent moron appointed by some board somewhere. No, was it Joe Biden who did that, or was it Trump? Was it this senator or that senator? We want to know. Since the outset of this lawsuit, the president's removal of all but ex officio members, we've taken divergent views. Now, they say that the USIP, right, the government says, no, we can cancel them, but they say, no, this is congressionally established. We are a freestanding nonprofit. It's like, where does that live? Where the hell in the Constitution are you allowed to do that? Saying no court has addressed this novel question of where precisely the Institute falls, she even knows, within our constitutional structure, right? No one knows. Though the answer to this question has implications for the legality under the Constitution of the president's exercise of removal power in a manner that violates the statute, okay? She's one of the dumbest judges, I think, in DC. She's trying to be smart about this, like, well, you know, no one's ever addressed this before. It's like, actually, we've talked a lot about this all over the place. Even the Supreme Court has talked about this, right? Even the removals, we've talked about these cases before anyways. The Treasury guy who was Hunter Biden's business partner, who got removed from his position, the MSP board, right? All these independent agencies have no place to reside. They're all going to go because they're unconstitutional. So don't act like you're going to walk us through this really deep analysis of never been thought of and never addressed this novel question. That's it. That's the game. Neither a traditional executive branch agency nor an entirely private nonprofit. It's made up. She even admits it. A close evaluation of the statute and its practical operation indicates that the arguments ably presented on both sides have merit. No, theirs do not. And both end up taking leaps to reach conclusions that are unsupported. This court concludes that despite exhibiting qualities of an NGO, it is an NGO, the U.S. Institutes of Peace has strong governmental ties and must be considered part of the federal government, at least for the purposes of resolving the constitutional separation of powers questions proposed here. Actually, no, that's the whole point of this. You can't consider it a part of the federal government because it's illegal. It's an NGO. That's the point. At the same time, they do not exercise governmental, let alone any executive power under the Constitution, and so it's not a part of the executive branch, right? This is this judge explaining it's just made up out of nowhere, floating around the ether of our structure. That alone is unconstitutional. Come on. Instead, USIP supports both the executive and legislative branches as an independent think tank and carries out its own international peace research, education, training, and information services. Then she's going to spend the rest of this justifying its existence. She says, an independent entity exercising inconsequential government power and de minimis, if any, executive power. As an entity like this, Congress has the ability to stop the president's removal power. It's even greater than is outlined in the other cases that we've talked about, which are Supreme Court cases. She's nuts. This judge is nuts. Applying those cases, Congress's restrictions is constitutional, and so Trump cannot remove these people, and the president and his administration's acts are contrary to the law and are therefore unlawful and ultra virus. The actions that have occurred since then to reduce the USIP to its statutory minimums, removing the president, replacing everybody, early termination of the staff, connecting it with Doge, transferring of the property, all of that was all effectuated by illegitimately installed leaders who lacked legal authority to take these actions. And so therefore, Judge Howell says all these actions that Trump did must be declared null and void. And so everything is canceled because she says so, because the entity doesn't really have a lot of power and it's de minimis what they're doing, and things can exist wherever they want. And so she'll just keep it in place. She says the Constitution makes clear the president does not have absolute authority, and outside of Article 2 has little authority at all. The president's efforts here to take over an organization, it's not his organization, it's Congress's, it's independent. Congress says it's independent. And so this is a gross usurpation of power and a way of conducting government affairs that unnecessarily unnecessarily traumatized? Oh no! The U.S. Institutes of Peace are unnecessarily traumatized. The leadership and the employees who deserved better. Emotional damage for these pathetic people, including Beryl Howell. Everybody who worked at the U.S. Institute of Peace who is in this bucket, who was traumatized by having your grift canceled, cry harder, all right? And grow a pair. Stop being so pathetic. An order consistent with this memo will be entered contemporaneously from Beryl Howell. This decision is insane, right? It's like logically inconsistent, even in this first part of it, as you can see. So it will be appealed. She's one of the worst judges in Washington, D.C. We'll see what the D.C. Circuit does. She has not had a good track record thus far. We'll see where this one goes. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do, and as we await this stay and reversal. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on the next one.